first sign of labor peace, with both sides able to opt out of the current CBA in mid-December. I'm Andrew Bogish.
This is Bart Scott, and I'll be in studio this Wednesday and every Wednesday night at 6 Eastern, talking football with DA on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
It's Monday, and Key Sports and More is on the air. Good day, everybody, and welcome in. Dennis Miller along with sports director Brett Knudsen, and what a weekend for high school football, huh?
Yeah, amazing.
Couple of surprises, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. We saw some things we didn't expect to see over the course of Friday night, but we have a heck of a lot clearer picture, I think, in one district of what's going to take place coming up in the postseason after Friday night. Our game of the week was the shocker, I think, of this part of the state. I don't think there's any question. Not that Crystal River beat Brooksville Central, but the way they beat Brooksville Central to completely shut them down and shut them out. To take Devontae Smith and render him irrelevant, less than 100 yards. It was
That was a huge surprise.
yeah, I mean, it was a domination from the get-go by the offensive and defensive lines for Crystal River. They were just on task with everything. I mean, defensively, they had an answer. Offensively, they made play after play. First possession of the game, Tyreek Scriven breaks it for 50-plus yards for a touchdown. They were out to an early 7-0 lead and never looked back. It was just it was about as impressive a performance as I've seen going up against a running back who has been as good as advertised. I mean, you know, it's not like Devontae Smith has been sort of up and down and inconsistent. He has been uh, very, very good all season long, and to have a game like that was just hard to believe that it was happening, really. But I mean, you just you have to give the Crystal River defense and the kids a ton of credit for what they were able to pull off on Friday night, and easily becomes the biggest win of the season for Crystal River. And the short term, that puts them in prime spot for the state playoffs. I mean, as it stands right now, it's about as easy as it can get in terms of how to get there. Crystal River doesn't need any help. Crystal River doesn't need anybody to do anything for them going down the stretch. You know, Crystal River and Nature Coast are the two teams that can just look at their schedule and say, if we win, we're in the playoffs. That's all there is to it. And Nature Coast can go ahead and shore up their spot in the postseason with a win. We'll talk to head coach Justin Warden, hopefully coming up here in just a few moments. He'll talk about what they have left on the schedule and what it is this week for obviously the playoffs and how it sets up. Nature Coast will take on Citrus. If Nature Coast wins, they're in the state playoffs. They would have clinched a spot, will have clinched the district championship because they could only finish with one loss. Crystal River already has one loss. Everyone else has two. So that's why it would work out that way. Crystal River is off this week, and they prepare for Weeki Wachi coming up on October the 28th. And as I said, Central's got 2 losses. Citrus has 2 losses. Hernando's got 2 losses. Of course, Crystal River has already beaten Central, and they've already beaten Citrus, and they've already beaten Hernando. So for Crystal River, if you can beat Weeki Wachi on October the 28th down at Weeki Wachi, and oh, by the way, the Hornets are 0-7 on the season, the Pirates are in the playoffs. It's as simple as it gets, right? So
You got it.
Impressive what they have been able to do this year. We talked a little about it on the broadcast Friday night. You know, Dennis, you go back to season opening loss to Dunellen for Crystal River, the way that they were not just beat on the scoreboard, but they suffered a whole bunch of injuries. They were physically beat up, and they had some kids, including their quarterback, DeAndre Parker, who was out for basically 4 or 5 weeks. And they finally felt like they got their team together in terms of the injuries and playing like they want just a week ago when they played Lecanto. And so now, man alive, it's been a pretty impressive couple of weeks for Crystal River. And it's going to be more than likely a playoff spot for the Pirates. So, congratulations to Tony Lewis on getting the job done, but still more work to be done, as we said. Still some things up for granted. The schedule this week, Lecanto's at Weeki Hernando is at Brooksville Central. Those two teams battling for the rare chance to stay alive. They would take all kinds of crazy math, I think, for it to happen. They'd have to create some sort of a three-way tie, but the loser of Central and Hernando is finished in the district race. So that becomes a huge game coming up on Friday night. As we mentioned, Citrus is at Nature Coast. Still an opportunity for Citrus to hang around. They're not finished yet, but they're going to need, obviously, some help moving forward. They're going to need a lot of help moving forward, but it's still out there. I think they have a chance if they can pick up a victory. And then the other games going on, a non-district affair. Seven Rivers takes on the Villages. They get prepared for the start of playoffs on October the 28th. So this is their last game before the postseason starts. And then we have the business of what's going to take place over at Denellen High School on Friday night, Dennis. And
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a real battle there.
South Sumter and Dunellen. That was, I don't know if that was the coming out party for Dunellen last year, but close to it. I mean, they were a good team last year. And I think everybody knew Dunellen was pretty good. But the way they went over to South Sumter and knocked them off. Coach Sherman still, of course, was leading the charge at that point. That was I don't know if it was a surprise, but that was, like I said, that's when everyone said, okay, the things have changed now. Dunellen is the team to beat, and we saw them go deep into the state playoffs, and now they will go into Friday night. I don't know if Price Harris will agree with me or not, but they'll go into that game as the favorite, because of the way they beat South Sumter last year. Obviously, a new staff, a couple new faces for South Sumter. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a great game. I think it will be. But Dunellen now has to come in with the fact that they are the favorites. They are the team to beat. And can they knock off South Sumter 2 years in a row, which is not easily done. So that's going to be a fun Friday night of football up there in Dunellen. Going to mean a whole lot to that community, to the kids, to the school, because we all know what South Sumter is about and has been about. And they may have a different head coach, but the reputation is the same. And trying to beat them is just as difficult. So this will be a heck of an opportunity for Dunellen Friday night. And the biggest thing is obviously you're playing for the chance to be at home in the first round of the state playoffs, and I think everyone understands how important that is. So a lot on the line Friday night at Dunellen. Of course, that will be our high school football game of the week. We're looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be a great atmosphere. It always is up there at Dunellen. But when you've got South Sumter coming in, Dunellen's going to be ranked when the rankings come out today. I would imagine. Obviously, at least third in the state. So this is a top 10 battle for sure in Class 4A.
Well, some of the other big contests that we saw Friday night, Trenton topped Newberry. This was a really close battle, back and forth all the way to the end, and Trenton came away with a 1-point win, 19-18. Congratulations to them guys up there. Bellevue, how about them taking it to the east side, 42-0.
I believe that
Man,
will go ahead and clinches
that's Coach Bradley.
Bellevue a spot in the state playoffs. So, I mean, you talk about one of those teams that we said before the season started, right, Dennis? Coach Brantley's going to get that thing turned around, right?
And
I mean,
he has.
at some point, they're going to be able to compete with the big boys in that district. I just don't think everyone thought it was going to be right away this year, right? But then we saw the first few weeks, and we watched them put up the scores that they put up, and everyone was like, "Whoa, they're putting up a ton of points.
Oh, yeah.
They look really, really good." So you obviously give them a ton of credit. Now this week, it becomes the district championship game as they take on North Marion. East Side's already done They're 0-2. They're finished with this. They're only a three-team district they're playing in. So this is it. The winner gets home field in the playoffs. The loser will go on the road. But both Bellevue and North Marion are in the state playoffs. And if you care about such things in terms of scores, I think it tells you we got a good matchup because North Marion beat Eastside 35-0. Bellevue beat them 42-0. So could be a heck of a ball game coming up against North Marion for Bellevue. But congratulations to them.
Well, some of the others that come to mind, Sun Lake getting over Pasco 39-15. 5E beat Gulf 32-20. Pretty good game there. Hudson of Ridgewood 23-13. Hudson beating them. Wesley Chapel, they did a number on Anclote, which was surprising. 48-13, the final score there.
And that obviously is interesting, keeping your eye on that district and Wesley Chapel because if you're peeking ahead and you're looking for the postseason coming up in District 5A7, we talk about Nature Coast just about right there, ready to clinch their spot in Crystal River as well. Remember, 5A8, that's the district that you match up with in the state playoffs. So Nature Coast would be getting ready to take on, if they were to win the district championship, Nature Coast would take on the number one, or actually the number two team out of that district. And right now, Wesley Chapel and River Ridge are both 5-0 in district play. So as you sort of play it forward a little bit, certainly looks like that district, Zephyr Hill's not out of it yet, but River Ridge and Wesley Chapel look like the two playoff teams coming out of that district. So Nature Coast would probably host the district runner-up, where Crystal River would have to travel to the district winner. And like I said, looks like River Ridge, Wesley Chapel are the two teams to beat, with Zephyr Hill still hanging around.
All right. Fort Meade, they took it to Wildwood 62-8, just ran all over them there. Union County topped Fort White 34-12. Madison County passed Lafayette 55-7. Hamilton County and Jefferson, that was a good battle there, and the Hamilton County comes out on top 22-14. North Marion lost one to, but North Marion's not the team this year they were last year. Chaminade Madonna topped them 35-14 on Friday night. Interlochen downing PK Young 27-6. Swanee over Rybolt, which has always been a power in the state of Florida, 38-22, the final score there.
They have been. They've been very, very good lately.
Trinity Catholic, when they get a win, they get them big. 45-0 over Father Lopez. The Williston Red Devils have had their struggles this year, but they get a win on Friday night against Holmes County, 26-21. And Vanguard, wow, did they ever put a walloping on Gainesville, 56-7. So Vanguard's going to be that Marion County team looking for the big win.
Yeah, they're top five team in the state as well. This looks a little bit like the Vanguards of old, doesn't it? Certainly appears to have all of the athletes in there and playing some really good football. They are a top 10 team in the state for sure.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a round of the scores from Friday night. A lot to consider as we move forward into the high school season. Things starting to shape up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to figure out now, especially with the districts, at least who you think is going to be in and what are the games that matter. As we mentioned, Crystal River, Nature Coast, and 5A7, they've got it right there in front of them. One more win for each of them, and they're in the state playoffs. Dunellen, a chance to essentially clinch the top spot in their district with a win on Friday night. We know Seven Rivers Christian has already clinched the top seed in their district. They will be at home in the state playoffs a week from Friday night. Of course, we mentioned Nature Coast and Crystal River. Keep their eye on 5A District 8 as those games and scores come in the next couple of weeks to see who they may be playing in the state playoffs. So it's becoming pretty clear right now. Just a few more games left, and still, like we mentioned in 5A7, even though it's Nature Coast and Crystal River to lose, other teams still have a chance, and you just don't want to. You want to go into it the last couple of weeks knowing you still have a chance and pick up some wins. You don't want to eliminate yourself by a loss.
By the way, Forest, we mentioned Vanguard. Forest on Friday night beat Lake Weir, and that's always a good rivalry there. 35-14 was the final, so Forest comes away with a nice win on that one, definitely.
Yeah, and they've got themselves in position, too, to make the state playoffs. Good season for Forest as well.
Ocala Christian Academy, we give their scores as often as we can. Christ Christ Church beat them 65-7. And Ocala Christian, of course, is in that same district with our Seven Rivers Warriors, are they not?
Not this year.
Not this year? Okay.
I mean, most sports they are, but yeah, they redistricted in football, so they're not there now this year.
That's right. I forgot about that. Okay. So there you are. Some of the interesting scores again from Friday night. Well, it was an interesting day for the NFL yesterday, and we'll talk about that and much more as we continue. So stay with us right here on Key Sports and more.
For over 45 years, you've been able to find Bull Rice Roofing listed in the phone book. How many other companies are still listed along with them? Good question. Bull Rice Roofing has been there for you for over 45 years, with quality roofing from a family-owned and operated business with only employees, not subcontractors. Bull Rice Roofing, dependable, reasonable, and as easy to remember as a bowl of rice. Bull Rice Roofing, 628-7445, CCC 025464.
Save a buck on a new truck from Eagle Buick GMC. 2016 GMC Terrains from $199 a month. 2016 GMC Acadias from $299 a month. Select from hundreds of new trucks and SUVs at Eagle. New 2016 GMC Sierras. Every color, every model. Regular cabs, extended cabs, crew cabs, and diesels. Save over $6,000. Eagle Buick GMC is your GMC truck headquarters. Visit EagleBuickGMC.com or stop by US 19 in Homosassa.
For 40 years, Bush Home Services' commitment to excellence makes them a leader in outdoor living. They feature both charcoal and gas grills from the Big Green Egg, Fire Magic, AOG, and more. Enjoy Florida living with custom landscape designs, pavers, patios, pool overlays, and outdoor kitchens, grills, fire pits, and fireplaces. Visit their showroom today or BushHomeServices.com. Bush Home Services, South Highway 19 and Fair Acres, Homosassa, 621-7700.
Make your Saturday, November 5th, a fun-filled day. Start by heading out to the Black Diamond Invitational Car Show from 9 a.m. till 3 p.m. See the finest examples of antique, classic, and contemporary vehicles in a beautiful fairway setting. Afterward, head on over to the Kings Bay Rotary's 9th Annual Stone Crab Jam from 3 till 10 p.m. with live music from 3 stages, artists, vendors, a variety of foods featuring stone crab, all while enjoying an open street festival in downtown Crystal River.
Find your style at Badcock and get 20% off your entire purchase when you open a new Badcock account. Plus, get $200 in free accessories with your qualifying purchase. And upgrade to a king-size mattress set for the price of a queen and save up to $689.90. With no credit refused, Badcock makes it easy. Hurry into your local Badcock and get 20% off your entire purchase when you open a new Badcock account now through October 24th. See store for complete details.
Don't miss CBS Sports Radio 104.3's live high school football coverage each and every Friday night. In addition to all the play-by-play action, you can get regional scores for every game as they happen. And you can watch live on our YouTube live stream sponsored by Bull Rice Roofing, Homosassa. Don't miss CBS Sports Radio 104.3 live high school football each and every Friday night, thanks to each of our high school football game sponsors, Eagle Buick GMC Homosassa, Mike Scott Plumbing Hernando, and Love Chevy Inverness.
Second period for Key Sports and more on a Monday after the big weekend. You mentioned Ridgewood a while ago, by the way. They lost to Hudson. I don't know if we gave them that score. 23-13 was the final in that one on Friday night. All right, let's move on to the NFL and talk about the weekend. Romo, everybody's wondering, this rookie does pretty good.
Dak Prescott has been fantastic, and it's been as it gets closer to getting ready to get Tony Romo back. That's sort of been the question.
Why bring him back?
Does he? Yeah, and with each win, it becomes more and more difficult to bring him back, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people felt maybe there was a soft early schedule for Dallas, and there was a little bit the schedule. But you go back to yesterday, and the win that they had going to Lambeau Field and picking up the win, that is about as impressive as it gets.
People were actually
look good. And I was just sort of going over the standings last night, just trying to get a feel for, okay, what jumps out at us? What are the things that we say are the biggest surprises of the year, good or bad? And I think obviously Dallas jumps out at you as surprisingly good. I mean, remember that they opened up the year with a loss at home to the Giants.
Right.
First game for Dak Prescott, and everyone's like, okay, this is sort of the same old Dallas, who with a backup quarterback can't get the job done. Well, they've ripped off five in a row, 5-1 right now. I think you put them right near the top of the list of the biggest pleasant surprises of the year. Minnesota's right up there too. They're 5-0 on the year. That is just unbelievable what they've been able to do. 5 games, they've given up 63 points. So being undefeated when they lose their quarterback, isn't it funny that we're talking about teams that lost their quarterback really right before the season started, and they're sitting there in really good position. Those I think are in the NFC, especially the two biggest surprises. I was about to throw Atlanta in there too if they would have been able to hold on against Seattle yesterday. They would have been off to a 5-1 start. Instead, it's 4-2, but that's good news for the Buccaneers. Obviously,
Washington. My Redskins won yesterday.
they deserve a lot of credit because you know what? A year ago they made the playoffs, and what was the talk? Well, they made it just because they were the best of the worst of that division. I mean, that team was that division was so bad. Somebody had to make it. Well, I mean, now you've got Washington at 4-2, playing pretty good football. You know, they were what 0-2 to start the year, Dennis, and now they've won 4 straight. So that has been a pleasant surprise on the NFC side. Obviously, I think the biggest surprise slash failure in the NFC, no doubt about it, is the Carolina Panthers. Right?
Big disappointment.
1-5 right now in the season, and I mean it's not good. They're 0-3 in the division. They've lost to everybody in the division right now. They've lost their first three, and you know I don't even know how you can begin to think that this could be a playoff team. I mean, if they went on a pretty good run from now and just won 7 out of their next 10 games, which is a pretty good clip, that still only puts them at 8-8, and they're not going to be good enough. So they're going to go from the Super Bowl to missing the playoffs.
Yep.
Hard
that way.
to believe. Then over in the AFC, you know, I guess you put New England in the surprise category because they had to play without Brady for the first 4 games, right? But is anyone really surprised that they're 5-1?
I heard talk this morning. I was listening to Amy's show, and they were talking about uh, they should have kept the rookie in there or the man behind him instead of bringing Brady back. But hey, there is no comparison. Really,
I mean, it's hard to imagine seeing them lose a game the rest of the year, just the way they play sometimes. Unbelievable.
I didn't expect them to win as big as they did over Cincinnati.
Yeah, well, Cincinnati, I think, is one of those teams you put in the disappointment category. I think you also got to give some credit to Rex Ryan and the Buffalo Bills. They started off 0-2, and they've now won 4 in a row. They're 4-2. They're only a game back of the New England Patriots. Of course, they beat the Patriots the last game before Brady came back, so they're hanging around. Um, and then the rest of the AFC, Dennis, is just sort of uninspired, unimpressive football. I mean, you mentioned Pittsburgh is 4-2 to lead the North, but now what? Roethlisberger is going to have surgery for a meniscus injury.
And Miami beat you?
Yeah, and so they're 4-2 and not very good. Baltimore is 3-3; they're not very good. Cincinnati is 2-4; they're off to a terrible start. And then you look at the AFC South. If you were unfortunately strapped to a chair last night and you couldn't move and get a hold of the remote and had to watch Houston against Indianapolis on Sunday Night Football,
Andrew Luck has gone south on him.
They're 2 and Houston is 4-2, and I don't know how because they're not a they're not a good football team. I mean, they're being outscored on the year, but they're 4-2. Mainly because, as we said, they play in a very bad division, and they're 2-0 in that division. Out west, that's the interesting division, I think, when you look at the AFC West. Oakland's 4-2, Denver's 4-2, Kansas City is 3-2. They look to be a pretty good football team, and San Diego's 2-4, but they could be 6-0. They've led every game they've played, so that is an interesting division as well. So that's how it shapes up. What 6 weeks into the NFL season, as we mentioned, for the Buccaneers, it was good yesterday. I think that Atlanta lost. They fall to 4-2. So the Bucks only one game out in the loss column, and of course they do own a win over the Falcons in Atlanta. They get them back in Tampa later this year. So good news for the Bucks. They're tied with the Saints, and they are 2 games ahead of Carolina in the loss column. So good weekend for the Bucks, even though they didn't play. That's probably what you would have hoped for, I think. See Carolina keep losing, have Atlanta lose so you can keep pace, and here you go. So a good weekend for the Bucks moving forward. Now they got to go out to San Francisco and try to pick up a win against a 49er team that now has lost 5 straight. That's not very impressive.
Well, that's the way it goes, though, I guess. Let's see. We have some baseball yet to talk about. Baseball over the weekend, and what's going on there.
Games, yeah.
A couple of really good games, huh?
Yep, absolutely. Great one last night by Clayton Kershaw for the Dodgers as he gets them back to even their series at 1-1. And then, of course, it'll be Game 3 of the American League Championship Series tonight as it is Cleveland and Toronto. The series shifts to Toronto, and Cleveland has a 2-0 lead. So pretty close to a must-win tonight for the Blue Jays if they want to keep the series close. They fall behind 3-0, and you can just about forget it.
Well, a lot of people say Clayton Kershaw isn't equipped for the rigors of October, but he's showing otherwise, huh?
Well, you saw him a big game 4 in their series against the Nationals to force a game 5. You saw him come in game 5 to get the last 2 outs of the game, and what he did last night against the Cubs was just unbelievably impressive. So yeah, that was the knock on Clayton Kershaw probably coming into this postseason. I think he's erased that pretty much. What he did last night and what he did against Washington in that big of a setting in Game 4, I don't think there's any question. Clayton Kershaw has proven that what he does in the regular season can be duplicated in the playoffs. So he's got the Dodgers in a good position now, going home for the next 3 with the series tied at 1. They're still the underdog because Chicago just still has tremendous pitching. It's hard to believe that this series isn't going to go back to Chicago with the Cubs ahead, but you never know. Crazy things can happen in the playoffs. I don't think anyone believed Cleveland would be up 2-0 on Toronto, even though the first 2 games are in Cleveland. So it's still wide open to see who's going to make it to the World Series between those 4 teams.
They got their game today. Cleveland does. I got to tell you, I'm still pulling for Joe Madden and the Cubs. I want him to take it all.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I know you don't like that.
No, not me. But that was always the interesting conversation is how you feel about these guys. Zobrist, obviously, with the Cubs, and Joe Madden. It's kind of funny. He's going up against the Dodgers with a chance to get to the World Series. Of course, Andrew Friedman, the GM of the Dodgers, after leaving the Rays. So yeah, interesting to see how people here view it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the overall feel is about Joe. I mean, I think initially a lot of people were like, yeah, we understand it. The small payroll, he wants a chance to compete, but it's as time goes on and you're with a high profile team that spends a lot of money, people sometimes change their views. They get a little bit jaded towards it and say, you're just chasing, you just went where the money went. You're just doing anything you can. You're a sellout. I don't know if that's the case. I don't really know. I mean, I think it, to me, from who I've spoken to and everything, it seems to be split almost right down the middle, Dennis. There's a lot of people that say, God bless him. I mean, he was wonderful here in Tampa, did a great job with this franchise.
Super job with what he had to work
what he had, and can you blame him for trying to get out when he knows that the money? And there's other people that say, you know what, you had a good thing here. If you're a good manager, stay, finish the job, and get it done. Don't run away just because the Cubs are offering you more money. I can see why fans would look at it both ways. But the one thing that I don't think anyone can argue, the guy can manage.
He can manage.
He can manage a low payroll team with guys trying to scratch and claw, and he can manage a high payroll team with egos and guys who all think that they're the best. He's done a fantastic job. But as is the case with the team that is expected to win the World Series, you don't win it, they're going to call everything you do into question. Everything's going to be second guessed. So we'll see how it goes from here with the series tied at 1 game apiece, going back to L.A. for games 3, 4, and 5.
And of course, this is the time of the year where you start seeing some faces change. The Diamondbacks, they hired Red Sox executive Mike Hazen as their new general manager. We'll see how that turns out. Stay with us. Key Sports and more continues after these words.
So, one of those bargain roofers hurts himself on the job. Who pays? You do. Because his low prices don't include insurance. You think you got a bargain? Not. Bull Rice Roofing has been there for you for over 45 years. With quality roofing from a family-owned and operated business with only employees, not subcontractors. Bull Rice Roofing. Dependable, reasonable, and as easy to remember as a bowl of rice. Bull Rice Roofing. 628-7445. CCC 025464.
Are you ready for tailgating season? Nick Nicholas Ford Lincoln is. They're kicking off football season right with 2016 Ford Explorers with 72 months, 0% APR financing. 2016 Ford F-150s with 72 months, 0% APR financing. Don't let your team down. Get to Nick Nicholas Ford Lincoln, Highway 19, just north of Crystal River. Not all buyers will qualify. See dealer for details.
Love Honda's model year-end sale ends soon, so hurry in and save on every new Honda.
And Love Honda is making it easier than ever to buy. It all starts online at lovehonda.com. Then come in and choose from our best selection of new Hondas priced to sell, like a new 2016 Honda Civic LX Automatic for just $159 a month, or drive a new 2016 Honda Accord LX Automatic, just $169 a month, and the new 2016 CRV LX Automatic two-wheel drives are only $179 a month. These are rock-bottom prices you won't see any other time of the year, only during the model year-end sale at Love Honda. See more clearance specials at lovehonda.com.
Go anywhere in the world first, but check with Chad last, and you'll save like nowhere in the world at Love Honda on Highway 19 between Homosassa and Crystal River. Come and see what love can do for you.
36 months, 12,000 miles per year, $29.99 due at signing, plus tax and license and any dealer installed options. On approved credit, see dealer for details.
The 13th annual Friends of Homosassa Springs Wildlife Park Haunted Tram Rides is coming up quick on Thursday, October 27th to Sunday, October 30th. A donation of $5 for age 13 and up and $3 for children over 3 to 12 includes a Halloween costume contest on Friday and Saturday, along with a fun slide, refreshments, and the haunted tram rides each night. The 13th annual Friends of Homosassa Springs Wildlife Park Haunted Tram Rides. An evening of family fun.
A rise back to the top.
The Gators have won the SEC Eastern Division title.
With a championship mentality restored.
It's a touchdown. He's hit, and down he goes. On the pylon, he's in. Oh, my.
The defending SEC East champion Florida Gators battle around the Southeast and inside the swamp this season. Catch every game and listen all season long right here on your home for Florida Gator football.
This is Mick Hugh. You're listening to CBS Sports 104.3.
Third period for Key Sports and more. And again, back to high school football. And Coach Warden on the line with us.
That's right. Nature Coast picks up another win. They keep it rolling to improve to 7-0 on the season. More importantly, 4-0 and 5A7. And we're joined by their head coach, Justin Warden. And Coach, another big district win on Friday night. Probably not the most perfectly played first half in terms of how you guys did it, but the second half looks like you guys really got things together and rolled to another district win.
Yeah, definitely. We felt like kids had hit a little bit of a patch of complacency there in the first half, and we were going to give them a piece of our mind at halftime. And we walked in, and the team doctor beat us to it, and he was letting them have it, and just trying to get them to look big picture. At the end of the day, football plays you for life, and if you come in and kind of put in half the effort required, he said he wouldn't have any patience and he wouldn't have his business anymore, and I think that kind of woke him up a little bit, and then we've had a couple guys step into leadership roles that weren't expected, but they're doing a good job, and we've let one of them talk to them, and they kind of got
what's that like for you, Coach? When you're, I'm sure, just ready to go in there and read them the riot act, you're all fired up, and then you walk in there and you see the team doctor go ahead and beat you to it.
You know, I think it's a credit for how in tune we all are in staff, from me as the head coach all the way to the team doctor. You know, we all got the same goal. We all know what the kids are capable of. We all know, our schemes, both sides of the ball. We all know how the kids react to what. And I think for him to be doing that, it just shows how committed he is to the program as well. So I think we're pretty lucky to have some of the people involved that we have involved.
And obviously, it turned around, as we mentioned, a victory over Lecanto to improve to 7-0 overall, more importantly, 4-0 in district play, which sets up this week. You guys will take on a Citrus team, a chance to, as I look at the standings, I don't know if you've peeked that far into it, Coach, but I mean, this would wrap it up. I mean, you guys would get the district championship and get that home playoff game if you get a win, even it got to those crazy tiebreakers. So a big opportunity for your team to really take all of the other stuff out of it and earn what I'm sure you wanted, which is a home playoff game.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, we're sitting right where we were this time last year, which is where we were aiming to be at this time of year. We got a chance to wrap up the district if we can win this week, and then next week we'll be playing for the county crown. So, it's 2 weeks of big time goals that we're having a chance to meet. So we're really fired up for that.
Citrus, a team that, I mean, look, when they started district playoff and lost to Crystal River, this looked like a team that was maybe going to struggle throughout the year, but they look like they've turned things around a little bit. What have you seen from the Hurricanes? I know it's still early in game week prep, but what have you seen from Citrus?
I think a lot of credit goes to what they do in the offseason. They're big, strong, physical kids, as they've always been from everything I've gathered and seen. But the kids themselves, they're really resilient. It seems like the coaching staff's made some changes here and there and added some wrinkles here and there. They're not afraid to pull some trick stuff out of their hat if they need to and get them going. So they've done a good job. And I believe I said it on here too, after they played Crystal River, if both of them found identities, they'd both be a lot tougher than I think people give them credit for. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly looked like Crystal River going to be one of the playoff teams as well coming out of the district. You mentioned the goals for your kids, wanting to get a home playoff game, win the district championship. That's right there this week, the county championship. Can you see a change in the kids as you get down to it now? I mean, because it's pretty easy to look up at that schedule and see there's only a couple more weeks left, plus you're guaranteed only 1 week of the playoffs. So does it get that time where, man, we really have got to get things focused because we're down to the home stretch now?
Yeah, I think especially second half, you can really start to see that change in their mentality. And I think that's what good programs do. As you get closer to that second season, the playoffs, you start to, the reality sets in. I guess the best way to put it. And you start to get a little more somber, but a little more business-like, and your approach to the game and preparing yourself and then handling game day stuff. So, we were just looking forward to them dialing in like they did last year and really getting after it when it comes time to get after it.
In a way, was it maybe a good thing that you guys had the first half that you did? Because that's obviously, I'm sure, a learning experience. And as you get down the road and want to go deep in the playoffs, knowing that you can't have a half like that in the state playoffs or it could all be over. So do you think that really allowed the kids as a great teaching experience?
Yeah, definitely. The one thing we did say, and like I said, we didn't have to say much halftime, but if we come out and play a first half like that in the playoffs, momentum's such a big deal in the playoffs that's something that can get you put out in a hurry, whether you're the better team or not. So I think it was a little eye-opening for the kids, and I think the way they responded the second half has us feeling really optimistic about where our ceiling could possibly be.
Also, too, I mean, I know you guys don't make any excuses, but a few guys dinged up, nicked up, not everybody at 100%. But doesn't that just speak to the depth and the ability that you guys have to have other young guys step up and make plays? Because, it would have been easy to make excuses, but it seems like you guys have found a way to get the ball in other people's hands, and other kids made plays who maybe hadn't counted on all year long.
Yeah, I think some of it too is we just got a group of kids. Their resiliency is good. Their dedication to what we're doing and learning what we're doing is good, and it allows us as a staff to throw a whole lot of different looks out there. And I think the more looks you
domination for Nature Coast. You just look at the numbers in district play. I mean, we've talked about your defense. 4 games, 51 points against, putting up well over 220 points. I mean, this I know is one part of the team that you're really proud of is the way your defense has. I mean, they've really brought it every single week this year. I mean, even the game against Brooksville Central, you look at that, but I mean, that's one of the better running backs in the state. I mean, this has been really from game one on, your defense has been lights out. That's got to make you feel really good as you head towards the postseason.
Yeah, definitely. And, there was a little bit of a cause for concern going into half and having given up 14 points, especially the way we gave them up. And some of that credit goes to them because they do their thing, calling plays and preparing their kids as well. But we felt like if we could get that defense dialed back in the second half, it'd be a lot different. And it ended up working out really well. We had a punt return for a touchdown, a pick six. We had some stacks in there. They really, really got after it. So anytime they can turn around and play like they're capable of playing, I think it makes stuff easier on us offensively.
It was quite a second half for Nature Coast as they end up outscoring Lecanto 46-0 in the second to pick up the victory and improve, as we said, undefeated in district play 4-0, 7-0 overall, a chance to win the district championship outright coming up on Friday night as the Sharks play host to the Citrus High Hurricanes. Head coach Justin Word. And coach, as always, thanks for the time. Best of luck this Friday night as you try to get back-to-back district championships.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it very much. Justin Warden, head coach of Nature Coast, and give him credit, Dennis. We all kind of were sitting there at halftime going 22-14. Wow, is this
What's
just
going on? Yeah,
one of those games that just that they are maybe sleepwalking through? But the team doctor, give him the what for at halftime, and they go out and score 46 unanswered points to blow that game out. It's a dangerous football team going into the state playoffs, and they can earn a spot with a win over Citrus coming up on Friday night.
Makes you wonder what he said.
Woo! Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this. Can you imagine going in there a few pounds overweight to the doctor's office?
Yeah.
And him giving you that kind of speech?
Really? Okay, stay with us. Fourth and final period for Key Sports and more up next.
For over 45 years, you've been able to find Bo Rice Roofing listed in the phone book. How many other companies are still listed along with them? Good question. Bo Rice Roofing has been there for you for over 45 years, with quality roofing from a family-owned and operated business with only employees, not subcontractors. Bo Rice Roofing, dependable, reasonable, and as easy to remember as a bowl of rice. Bo Rice Roofing, 628-7445, CCC 025464.
Find your style at Badcock and get 20% off your entire purchase when you open a new Badcock account. Plus, get $200 in free accessories with your qualifying purchase. And upgrade to a king-size mattress set for the price of a queen and save up to $689.90. With no credit refused, Badcock makes it easy. Hurry into your local Badcock and get 20% off your entire purchase when you open a new Badcock account now through October 24th. See store for complete details.
Discover why Brashears Pharmacy is the Chronicle's Best of the Best award winner. Brashears Pharmacy is your independent hometown pharmacy where your needs and well-being are top priority. The professionals at Brashears Pharmacy will answer all your questions and concerns about prescriptions. They provide vaccines, stock a full line of now vitamins and supplements, and carry unique gift items for any occasion. Brashears Pharmacy, where you save time and money. 2 convenient locations, downtown Inverness and just off Lecanto Highway, Lecanto.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah.
You heard about that there pump truck Mike Scott Plumbing's got?
Heard it. Shoot, I've seen it.
You have?
Oh, yeah. I get my monthly checkup just to see that thing in my yard.
You ain't kidding. I'd rather come home to that thing every day than my wife.
Mike Scott Plumbing, the only call you need to make when it comes to all your plumbing needs. Get a free filter cleaning with every septic pump. And remember, if water runs through it, we do it.
The United Way of Citrus County is committed to improving lives. This year, their goal is to help 100 people in Citrus County earn their GED. If you've always wanted to earn your GED, don't wait. Now's the time to improve your future. Register Register by calling the Wiffukuchi Technical College at 352-726-2430 and ask for a United Way GED Initiative application. This message brought to you by your team at CBS Sports Radio 104.3.
All right, everybody in the car. Let's go.
What are we going to do first when we get there, Mom? Go for a hike?
Sure.
What about canoeing? Can we go canoeing too?
I don't see why.
How long does it take to get to the forest?
It's not that far, sweetie.
Are we there yet?
Yep, we're here.
Already?
It's a short drive from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a neighborhood park or green space near you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
Fourth and final period for Key Sports and More on a Monday. And let's talk a little bit of college football here. You got things happening over the weekend. Nice University of Florida football game, huh?
Did what they had to do. I mean, we talked about Missouri being a team that just isn't, well, they're not very good. And so that's what you want to do is you want to be able to take care of it, get it over with, and beat them. I mean, leave everything sort of out of their hands. Don't have it close going into the fourth quarter, and that's what they did. So that's a big win, I think, for the Gators, just because they didn't have to sweat it out. You don't have to worry about it. They're a little banged up. Everyone is this time of year, and then on top of it, I mean, you look at what happened up in Knoxville, the way that Alabama just absolutely hung it on Tennessee, and
They
so
look like a volunteer team.
that's one of those you wonder. Do you give all the credit to Alabama, or is Tennessee not as good? Probably a combination of maybe both. I don't know, but the good news for the Gators, you look up right now, and as it stands, the Gators are alone in first place in the SEC East. So they are just a few wins away. You look at their schedule. Obviously, you got a week off this week, and then you've got Georgia and Jacksonville. Georgia, who just got beat by Vanderbilt on Saturday. Vanderbilt went into Athens and knocked off the Bulldogs. Georgia is now 2-3 in SEC play, so that's a winnable game. The key to me is November the 5th when the Gators have to go up to Arkansas. Arkansas just pulled off a nice win against Ole Miss, which they absolutely had to have. But Florida, yeah, I hate it. But you think it's going to come down to that game they got to play in Baton Rouge against LSU, and that could be the one that decides if they make it to Atlanta or not. Now, the one thing that can help them is if Tennessee happens to fall one more time, then the Gators have a little bit of breathing room, and that game in Baton Rouge may not matter. So that's certainly what you hope if you're the game. And I know you want to go out and win it, and I hope they go up to LSU and absolutely stick it to the Tigers for the way this whole thing has transpired. But I mean, you look at the Tennessee schedule. They go to South Carolina after a bye week this week, and then they've got Kentucky, Mizzou, and Vanderbilt. So they just went through the tough part of their schedule. Georgia, A&M, Bama, and Florida. So you almost know it's going to work out this way, right? Because of all the controversy of the hurricane, the rescheduling of that game with LSU, you just almost feel like it's going to come down to the Gators with one loss, taking on obviously going down to Baton Rouge to take on an LSU team. And if Florida's going to make it to the SEC championship game, they're going to have to beat LSU. That's just what it's going to come down to, and it's not right. It's not fair. It's a little bit ridiculous, but that's the hand the Gators have been dealt, and it certainly would make it even more special if they could get back to Atlanta to the SEC championship game and get to go through LSU to get it done.
Now, you mentioned LSU. Les Miles is one of the top choices at Purdue.
Yeah, they fired their head coach, Daryl Hazel. It has been just a futile effort by Purdue.
Sorry start on that.
Yeah, I mean, and their last couple of coaching hires haven't been very good. I saw an article last night on CBS Sports talking about that, Purdue is not a bottom feeder football program in terms of the player in the Big Ten, you want to compete with Ohio State and Michigan and Wisconsin, or even think of competing, you're going to have to go out there and pay some money for a head football coach. Don't go on the cheap. And we'll see what Purdue does. I mean, obviously, Les Miles would bring some pretty good defense with him and big name credibility. I guess the question is he ready to jump right back into coaching? And is Purdue a fit for Les Miles? We'll have to see.
That's a wait and see. Yeah,
That's a tough job. Purdue's a tough job because, like we just mentioned, I mean, you're recruiting in the same state as Notre Dame, and I know they go after a lot of different kids, but you're in Indiana, but you're also recruiting against Michigan and Ohio State and Michigan State and Wisconsin. I mean, just go all through it. So, I mean, best case scenario, where's Purdue? Fifth, sixth in the pecking order in the Big Ten. So that's a tough job.
Well, what is up with FSU? Should they not have beaten Wake better than they did? 17-6, the final score in that?
That's a tough question to answer because Wake was 5-1 coming into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Not no overwhelmingly big.
But they're not
wins.
even nationally ranked.
No, not even nationally ranked. Jimbo Fisher called it what it was, which seemed like a little bit of a lackluster performance offensively. But look, I think no matter who you coach at what level, you come off a game against Miami that's very emotional, like they had. I think you can expect a bit of a letdown. If you're Jimbo Fisher in Florida State, I think you are pretty happy with what you saw defensively. Again, this is 2 weeks in a row they've played really good defense. And if it wasn't for the defense, we may be talking about another disastrous loss to an average football team. Offensively, it wasn't very crisp. DeAndre Francois played, I don't think he played bad, but his most average game as a quarterback. We're starting to expect more out of him. But I think that's a game in my mind, Dennis, where even though as a coach you're mad, you don't like the way the guys didn't come out and play great football, didn't have the intensity, the enthusiasm, didn't go out there and take it to a team. You just say, I'm just glad we got a win and we get out of here and we can move on to the business at hand because, I mean, we talked about it. This season really comes down to can you wreck it for Clemson, And Clemson,
and they continue to roll, but they did have a scare over the weekend.
A scare, man, they should have lost. I mean, North Carolina State completely bumfuzzled their way into a loss in that one. I mean, they got a first down with about 40 seconds left in the game in a tie game inside the 10-yard line and ran one little play to get the ball to the center of the field for their kicker. Instead of trying maybe a couple throws to the end zone and try to win it with a touchdown, they settled for let's just give it to our kicker. And guess what? I mean, have we not learned anything in our entire life of watching football, especially at the college level?
Mm-hmm.
You don't leave it up to the kicker if you have to. You just don't want it to happen. And he shanked it, and Clemson beats him in overtime. And really, to this point, that saves Clemson's season. You lose to NC State, and you got a long way back to go to the playoffs. I know one loss doesn't eliminate you, but if that loss is to NC State, that's a big one. So, if you're Florida State, there's a chink in the armor right there. That was not a very good effort by Clemson.
No.
And it's a bye week this week for Florida State, and then it's Clemson on October the 29th, which will be a huge, huge game. And as I said, for Florida State, you feel really good about the way your defense played the last 2 weeks. Now you got a week to prepare for Clemson. That's going to be a heck of a football game in Tallahassee coming up on October the 29th.
Miami, the Tar Heels, are they legit? I mean, that's a pretty big win over Miami.
Champions of the state of Florida, aren't they? Because they beat Florida State, they beat Miami. So, they are legit. They play well. They get beat last week, and you sort of scratch your head at it a little bit. But they've got some players, and they took advantage of sort of the same thing we just talked about with Florida State. Miami had that emotional, hard-fought loss to FSU. You get North Carolina coming to your place the next week. It's North Carolina. The stadium's half empty. That's just hard to get yourself up. And as a coach, you got to figure out a way to make sure they're ready. And they weren't. Miami was not. So give North Carolina credit. They're proven, and they're into the top 25 now. This is a legitimate team. remember they made it to the ACC championship game last year, and hung with Clemson for a little while. So I don't think that's a shock that North Carolina is doing it. I just think a lot of people thought Miami was going to be better prepared to handle it and could beat them at home, but it didn't happen.
Didn't happen. Well, and USF and UCF.
USF continues to roll. I mean, it was closer than most people thought against UConn, but they were able to put it away late, put up 35 points again. They will be in action Friday night as they travel to Temple, and they've got it right out in front of them. They got a couple of big games coming up, as we mentioned, at Temple. Then they host Navy on October the 28th. Of course, Navy's the team that knocked off Houston this year, and Navy potentially a team you see them the end of October, and you could see them again in the American Conference Championship game. Then they go to Memphis, and then the softer end of the schedule with SMU and UCF. But a big couple of weeks for USF. They're creeping up on getting themselves in the top 25, but they just can't afford a loss now. They got to keep things going. But offense continues to hum. The defense plays really, really good. Impressed with what Willie Taggart's done, no question.
There you go. Well, I'm going to switch over to hockey for the minute or so that we've got left because we got to mention the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are off to a great start. They downed the New Jersey Devils over the weekend 3-2, and Stamkos looking good. Team looking great out there, aren't they?
Yeah, you talked about how they're going to split the time between the goaltenders, and we saw Vasilevsky get his opportunity, and this is this is what you hope that the Lightning do. It's only two, but you want to keep going. We saw them last year get into a difficult spot early on when they didn't play well for the first almost 3 months of the season. So you want to see them get off to a good start and play well and be near the top because home ice advantage does matter when you get to the playoffs. And while most of these games in October and November aren't huge, you just don't want to dig yourself a hole like they did last year and know that you're going to have to be on the road for the last couple of series. They would have liked to have had a game 7 at home against Pittsburgh, right? That would have made a difference.
Yeah.
So I think as you get a more mature team, you understand that there's some nights early on in the season where there's not a lot of energy in the building, not a lot of excitement, but those are points you need to get because it's going to be important later on down the road.
Well, it's time for us to head it on down the road as we come to the close of yet another Key Sports and More show. Thanks, everybody, for having joined us, and we'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same station, CBS Sports Radio 104.3. CBS Sports Radio 104.3 is your official home for Gator football, Gator basketball, Rays baseball, and high school